Welcome to the Destiny of Manufacturing podcast, brought to you today by the Precision Metalforming Association and the PMA's Educational Foundation. Today we have the tremendous pleasure of having Ralph Hardt with us. He's from Jagemann Precision, and he is also the past chairman for the Precision Metalforming Association, who is also one of our sponsors, and we're really glad to have you here, Ralph. Please tell us a little bit about yourself and your history.
All right. I'm president of Jagemann Stamping here in Manitowoc, Wisconsin. We also have facilities in Nashville, Tennessee. And we focus on precision deep draw stamping, progressive stamping. And over the years, we've also added fineblanking and plastic metal insert molding and assembly. Prior to that, I was part of the global management team of Feintool International, in which we're the global leading source for fineblanking, and was responsible for North American operations and part of the Switzerland global management team. And prior to that, I was president and CEO of Oberg Industries, which is a carbide tool shop, high precision carbide tool shop and precision manufacturer located in Freeport, Pennsylvania.
That's excellent. That's certainly must have kept you pretty busy anyways.
It kept me busy, and I think gave me an interesting perspective, at least, in the 30-plus years of being a job shop metal former, as to what's important, both for the current and both for the future.
Great. And speaking of the future, obviously that's one of the things that we focus on here at the Destiny Manufacturing Podcast is a look 5 years into the future, and also what is it going to take to be successful. And I know that you have some great insight into that. And can you give us a little bit of an introduction to that, of what you think it's going to take for companies to be successful in this business?
I think it's going to take a focus on what I consider 6 key factors that executives and managers or owners of metal forming companies or tooling companies need to look at more than ever in order to prepare themselves for the next 5 years. And I'd like to talk about each one a little bit if I can.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I'm also going to make a little bit of fun here. There's going to be some quotes I'm going to list as I go through these 6 factors. And these quotes are historical quotes, but at the end I'll ask you to guess who made these quotes, because I think they're as relevant today as they were historically.
Sure.
Now, from my perspective, all of us have to run our businesses like a business, and it means thinking very strategically more than ever. A lot of us grew up in this industry solving the day-to-day issues with tactical type thinking, and I think we all need to step back right now, and to look ahead 5 years, I think we need to look at 6 key points. The first one is we really need to understand our cost of doing business, which jobs or which capabilities are truly profitable within our operations and which are not. That's important so we know where to focus our resources on what we are good at. It's important to know what's possible, what's not, to improve our cost structure, whether through automation, through people, or through other technologies. And thirdly, in the global world today, you need to be the low-cost producer if possible. And that means total cost. It means cost of product, cost of technology, cost of quality, cost of logistics in order to compete in the global market. So we need to have a very good understanding of our cost structure. Again, to focus our organizations on what we're really good at. Item number 2 is really valuing the importance of our customers and their strategies, which is very different by the industries we participate in. For example, the electronics industry is completely different from the automotive industry. So we need to make sure we understand our customers, and are they experiencing any significant business issues? Are they planning on downsizing or growing their supply chain? Are they have any new products they're working on that we should be part of? We also don't want to wait until they tell us what they need. We need to think ahead for them as well to come up with ideas and solutions as to what they may need. So my first quote is as follows: if I asked my customer what they wanted, they would say they need a faster horse. And again, that's from somebody. We'll figure out who that is at the end. Point number 3 is to realize that quality is a given. To stay competitive today, more than ever, you need a formal quality management system that is integrated with your shop floor management solution. The separation of the quality lab being an inspection department at the end of the manufacturing process is behind us. And the best way to ensure quality control throughout everything is pushing quality through your shop and making the systems and interfaces seamless. The second quote I'll live for this, or I'll say for this topic, is quality is doing what is right when no one else is looking. The next area is making sure you value your greatest asset, and that's your employees. As we know, highly skilled and qualified shop employees are hard to find and even harder to keep. My recommendation is people take it seriously to develop apprenticeship programs within their own companies, improving the skills of employees you do have and keeping them engaged in the business. Second, to do that, you need to work in cooperation with local technical colleges and universities, consider participating in mentoring internship programs, and work closely with our high schools and vocational schools.
Yep.
And we also can't forget about managerial leadership development programs for our people to keep them up to date with what's required to do business in our world today.
Yeah, that's an often
overlooked. In order to keep
overlooked.
and retain people, it's important to have a company culture that has a large impact on the retaining of your employees. High pay doesn't necessarily mean someone will stick around. The quality of the work environment, the management style are just as important as the salary. Most employees today, I believe, want to feel like they're part of something, and we need to create that environment for such. Or if everybody is moving forward together, the success simply takes care of itself. The next point is innovation. I think innovation is overstated, perhaps an overused word, but to me more important than ever. Innovation involves much more than simply a technical aspect or a machining or a stamping aspect. It involves innovation as to actually working on products and markets for ourselves and for our customers. It's innovating on how to serve customers, both regional and global. It's innovating to make sure that the labor that we want to maintain and retain within our company today and tomorrow can be utilized most effectively, whether through automation, training, or learning systems. So innovation is a theme we can talk about much further at a later date, but innovation today is more important than ever.
Right.
And another quote for the person from the past that foretells the future is, failure is simply the opportunity to begin again, this time more intelligently. So we can't give up if we fail at trying something new. We have to be willing to constantly change and adapt. And we have to not find fault and focus on faults, but focus on finding a remedy for the future. The last item, I think, point number 6, more important than ever today. Some people call it the Internet of Things. I call it connected systems that run our business. We can no longer live with outdated systems or information to guide our business. We have to have good information from the tool to the press, from the press to the quality, to the financials, from the financials to the management information on a timely and accurate basis, that all of us are connected, from the person on the floor to the person in the office. Having good data, good information to make decisions, good information to analyze where our business is at from an operational productivity and quality perspective. So we need to continue to develop connected systems to run our business more than ever as we move forward.
Right.
So those are the 6 keys, I think, that we need to focus on more than ever. And as far as the quotes I mentioned, does anybody have an idea who that was?
I know the Ford one was the first one.
Yeah, Henry Ford made all those quotes. So many years ago, but all the quotes are true today when you think about it. Which is why my theme is focusing on the future while going back to the basics, or the past even at times is even more important than ever to focus on the future. You have to step back, just like he did, and look in an industry and figure out how to maximize it, innovate it, change it, create a market, and grow it at the same time. attracting skills and talent or developing them, like Ford had to do back then, develop talent for the new technologies that were upon the organization. So sometimes looking back at history isn't a bad thing when you want to look forward to.
Right. I think that's an interesting perspective, because I think that's kind of, in many ways, where we are today in our workforce development programs and things like that, is that, we got away from vocational schools. We got away from having internships, and we got away from having embedded systems within our workplace that we can develop these the technical ability within our employees internally. And is that how you see it, that's kind of one of the struggles that we have today?
I think it's a very important investment we need to make within our companies. And some members may say, or some companies may say, well, what if we train them? What if they leave? And I always answer the question, what if we don't train them and they stay?
That's right.
The issue is that training today is more important than ever, and I think we can rely to a certain degree on MEPs or industry training associations or vocational schools. But to me, companies need to take training more seriously ever than before. And training today in the metal forming operation isn't just about a straight side press or tool maintenance. Many of us do welding, secondary operations, assembly, machining, you name it, that we need to have specialized training developed within our companies.
Absolutely.
For those new skills that a lot of us didn't have 20 years ago when we simply stamped parts. So
yeah.
To me, training is a broad spectrum. I think it's easier today from the base training, looking at what some industry associations are doing, such as the PMA with their new training programs, Skills 360, and a couple other things. But I also believe that it's a company culture that needs to be developed. And through training and through developing that culture of continuous training, it should also help with employee recruitment and retention, in my view, which are both very important for us over the next decade.
Yeah, there's been a lot of studies and a lot of information out there that has gone through HR managers and things like that, that the reality of it is, it isn't just about money. People are looking for companies that are innovative. They are looking for companies that have developmental programs within their company, and they encourage innovation, and they encourage change. I really hate the word change, because it everybody changes and everybody dies. That doesn't necessarily mean that change has to be a good thing. It has to be encouraged to try and find the right path and try and find positive changes, not just change just for the sake of change, because I see that in a lot of places where we just change for the sake of change, and it isn't necessarily better, it's just different.
No, and I think to encourage learning and to encourage risk-taking is important as well. For example, at Jagemann, every employee can receive up to $200 a year to do something they may not have ever, has really nothing to do with the business, but it involves either learning or risk-taking. It could be taking skydiving lessons. It could be learning Spanish or German or Italian. It could be, basic welding at a technical school, or other types of things. We really want our people to constantly want to learn, to constantly want to take risks, and to look at new things. So we think it's an important part of our culture. So we try to fund some of those things for our people.
Yeah, I think that's a great approach, because many leading companies now don't just look internally to, like, for example, Boeing. If you just looked inside of looking at aerospace engineers, then you continue always getting what you've always gotten, because they're all trained the same way. And things like NASA, where they went out to find solutions from people that were experts in origami to how you unfold the satellites and put them into a very small package. that's a solution that, it may not have come to somebody who was an aerospace engineer, or how to develop other systems that aren't necessarily, let's say, a straight line solution that exists out there. Sometimes the path has to go in a different direction. And I think things like 3D printing and some of those other areas, they really have to encourage thinking outside of the box, because the solutions, the places where innovation is going to come from in some of those technology areas isn't going to be from just doing things the same way, just doing them on a 3D printer. It's thinking outside of the box, creative shapes and that.
No, there's no question. And that's why you want to encourage your folks to learn, to take risks, to fail sometimes. And they continue. You don't want new technologies to be unnerving or too challenging. You want people to embrace them. It doesn't mean everything's going to work. It doesn't mean every technology is going to work. As we all know, there's been failures and successes throughout the metalforming industry for years. But you do want people to embrace that potential change and to look ahead.
Sure. And now, can you...
However, while not forgetting the basics, and the basics today to me are more important than ever, having a skilled and trained workforce, having a good handle on your global cost competitiveness, and what you're really good at, and trying to maximize it. It's a combination of the basics, which I think we need to focus back on, and the future.
Right. And the as far as focusing on the core competencies, what do you see as some of the ways that we can encourage companies to do that? Because I think, as you mentioned earlier, a lot of places have taken the approach of not training employees, not encouraging the workforce development systems. What can we do nowadays to try and encourage companies to get more involved in that?
Well, I think, first of all, we have to get companies involved in networking, period, to work and meet other manufacturers within your given area or region, to have somebody to talk to, somebody to learn from, somebody to benchmark. I think that's step number one, somebody to interface with, whether it's roundtable groups, districts, chapters such as the trade associations, you name it. I think we have to get our people involved and networking to want to meet and want to learn. I think that's step number one. And sometimes with everybody's schedule today between business and personal, it becomes more and more difficult. But to me, it's ever so important to reach out to other manufacturers, to learn from each other, to listen to each other, and to hopefully gather some ideas.
Yeah, I agree. As far as technology goes, what are some of the areas that you see new innovations coming out of, especially when we talk about like the Internet of Things and how we have a connected shop floor, and then how we also have things like networking and linking all your machines together, but then also closing that loop, whereas we don't just give people information, we also try to develop conclusions based on that information, whereas before sometimes we're gathering information just for the sake of gathering it, and it was just overwhelming that we couldn't even act upon it. How do we sort through that now, and how do you see that? How are you doing that?
Well, we're first of all trying to improve our what's called OEE, or operational effectiveness. When you're looking at uptime, you're looking at downtime, you're looking at quality coming off the operation, and trying to look at each one of our operations to try to improve that operational effectiveness, and what are our main drivers as to why we're not running to rate, or why we're producing bad parts or having so much unplanned downtime. Because the key to being best in cost is making good parts as effective as possible when your labor force is in the building. So with that, there's so many new tools available, as you know, today. I mean, dye sensing has been around for a long time. There are misfeed detectors, you name it. Well,
Yeah.
now there's dye sensing that can actually measure parts. There's dye sensing that can measure tonnage by station in your tools and sense something going on because tonnage is starting to change. There's robots that can load non-oriented parts. They call them spider robots or multi-axis robots, but they can orient non-oriented parts where historically we'd have to have a bowl feeder designed for each job. So to me, connectivity through information, for example, a sensor coming through your press control back to your ERP system to highlight issues quicker to management or maintenance, as well as the ability to integrate subsystems such as material handling systems or vision inspection systems or other type of inspection systems, either within your tools or after your tools, is very important to get that uptime, to get that quality part. Every area you have that machine staffed, and that's where we're trying to focus right now.
Yeah, that's tremendous. That as long as you keep that perspective, I think that that can only bode well for your success.
Well, it ends up in enhanced profitability for the company, which is good because that means the company can reinvest. It ends up in higher value added per employee, which means the company can invest in its people as well. So it's being as efficient, as effective as possible. That's our focus right now, and making as many good parts as possible too. Too many of us, I think, I have to admit, we have too many people manually sorting parts that we'd like to these days.
Yeah. That still tends to be too much of a manual operation, unfortunately. And sometimes we have our inspection stations, I think, too far into the process that we haven't done a very good job of checking them as we're going through, and we're just developing a lot of scrap in some instances.
Yeah, we're doing a lot with tonnage on individual stations in our tooling right now, and when we start to see changes one way or the other, that usually means something's going wrong with either galling or a chipped punch or something happening within the tool. So we're trying to do predictive measuring instead of after the fact. That's just an example.
Yeah, I think that's some of the areas that hopefully the industrial Internet of Things will yield some really good results, is those areas where we become less responsive and more predictive on our issues that we have within manufacturing, and can try and head off some of the problems before we get there. Well, we're almost out of time here, Ralph. Any final words of encouragement or any kind of simple one-word facts that you'd like to impart?
I think more than ever, the negative item in today's world is that the Internet of Things or communications result in a lot of us looking at our cell phones maybe more than we like, and not communicating clearly with the people around us or with our customers or suppliers, whatever. Again, I would highly encourage people to work on communicating more, to listen, not just read, and to develop that culture that's a win-win for everybody. And so my personal focus is to enhance communication. Call it old-fashioned or basic, but to enhance communication, because with good communication comes understanding. With understanding comes learning. So again, back to the basics while looking towards the future.
Great. Well, thank you very much. Today, our guest has been Ralph Hardt from Jagemann Precision, and this has been the Destiny of Manufacturing podcast, and we thank our sponsors, the Precision Metalforming Association and the PMA's Educational Foundation. Everybody, make it a great day.
Thank you.